So just before I get started, I'll ask a couple questions and I'll try to cater the presentation to it. So it'll help me understand the audience as well. How many people in the audience have iPhones? Okay, how many people have non-iPhones? Okay, and how many people have iPads? How many people have non-iPads? Okay, all right, great, that's good. I don't have any code for you guys, I apologize, but if you want afterwards, I can do some for you. And we'll get started here. Let me tell you a little bit about Xtreme Labs. We're a mobile software development shop. We're leaders in the industry. We do mobile and tablet development, smart TV development, and we work with most of the world's leading companies to help them with their mobile strategy. We're primarily based in Palo Alto and Toronto. Since we're in Palo Alto, we know everything. My VP of Engineering wrote a post on TechCrunch on Agile software development. If you guys Google TechCrunch and Xtreme Labs, you can read about it. It's actually a really interesting post on pair programming and talks about a lot of our philosophies and why we think they're valuable for mobile development. It's a good article. You guys can look it up. It was posted in March. We've developed 250 apps across the platforms you see on the bottom there. They've probably been downloaded 300 million times, and I think in aggregate, $100 million of revenue has been generated from those apps. So it's been good, and I think we've learned a lot of really good experiences, and I hope I can share some of those good things with you guys here now. This is just a sample of some of our clients. Some of them we can talk about, some of them we can't talk about, but it's across multiple verticals, multiple industries, startups, established companies, media companies. So if you have any questions from different industries, if I don't have an answer, somebody that works for me probably will. So let's get started here. I'll try to establish some context. So what is she doing? She's maybe waiting for her date or her food to come out, and she's checking her Facebook status or updating Twitter, right? And that's one experience that exists today. What are these two guys doing? Looks like they're waiting for the bus, and again, they have probably 15 to 30 seconds to kill before they got to hop on the bus that's right there. And the guy on the left is, updating Facebook. The guy on the right is, updating his Twitter status, maybe checking Instagram photos. This woman on the left here, she had a great game. She's messaging her husband about it, saying, hey, great game, I just killed it. Maybe I should play in the French Open. Woman on the right is playing Angry Birds while she's driving. And she's waiting for the subway, not checking a subway app, but probably also playing Angry Birds. So the idea here is one of the things that we've learned in developing a lot of applications is that the majority use case for a lot of these apps is these type of scenarios, is that when it's very, very quick usage, you have just a few minutes, or not even a few minutes, sometimes even a few seconds. And really, if you start thinking about your application in that way, it really helps you build a successful application that people will use. And so what I'll kind of first walk you through before I go through trends is what we tell a lot of our clients when they start to work with us. And on purpose, I've left some of these pictures small just so you don't focus on that and you focus sort of on the statement. So first and foremost, I think embracing design is important. I think, if you look back when we first started, about 5 years ago, when people were thinking about mobile development, it was usually a bunch of guys in the corner, and they said, oh yeah, those guys work on mobile, go talk to them. And they didn't have any designers or really a lot of resources to get anything done. And what's become quite apparent with the iPad, Retina 2 displays, Retina displays, that you have to really focus on a really solid design experience, and you have to think about this from the start. If you don't think about it from the start, it can create a lot of challenges, especially if you want to create like a top performing application, both from a usage perspective and like a payment perspective. People are expecting a lot now because they're paying for things. The app down here is one that we designed. I kind of picked apps from all over. This is Shutterstock. It won a Webby Award for a good design, so you guys can take a look at it. And it's got a pretty cool menu thing on the bottom left that we came up with. Another thing is, you got to remember, most of the phones that people are using today, they all embrace touch. And what made this game so successful is that they really utilize that in a good fashion, in combination with the physics engine and other things. But it made you really utilize the hardware in a really good way, so that it made it fun and made you do something you couldn't really do on your console gaming station or anything else. So that was another thing we always tell people: think about this experience. It's got to be a touch experience. A lot of people have desktop apps, or a lot of people are bringing over applications that are designed to work in Windows and want them to work on tablets, but realizing that those apps are really built for a mouse and keyboard. You don't have those things on a mobile device anymore. You're creating the aha moment. This is sort of easier said than done, but example here is, this is not one of our clients, but these guys do a good job. I don't know if has anybody here tried Fuse Meeting? It's a really great product. And it's like a 1, 2, 3 of running meetings. And the interesting thing is, it does all the things that you'd expect a nice meeting application to do. Specifically for me, if I'm on my mobile, once I'm in the application, it gives me an option to join the call, the audio conference, right from the iPad via the data connection, or just call my cell phone. So I don't have to bumble around and for extension codes and all that kind of other stuff, which is a real pain. So that's a sort of one example of a really good aha moment in a mobile experience, where typically you're probably running through the airport, or sitting in a cafe somewhere, and you don't want to dig through looking for the dialing extensions, or at least I don't. Here's another one, make it intimate. This is an example of another product. Are you guys familiar with Pair? This launched a few weeks ago. And what these guys really did as well is just focus on a really good user-to-user experience. So this is sort of like a messaging app that's used between couples. And what it does is, it has private messaging with photo sharing, and it has like a draw something mode where you can send pictures. And it really creates a personal connection between yourself, the application, and the other user on the other side. Have perfect timing. So this is kind of, just a part of what Steve talked about is, on one side, if the app is not fast, that's going to be a real problem. On the other side, what I tell a lot of people, again, if you can't get whatever you're trying to get done in under 15 seconds most of the time, and that's sort of the diagram on the right, if you don't know, is the Twitter integration that Apple did. It's meant for a real quick experience. So you can go in and very quickly do something. And a lot of that is a combination of what Steve talked about: make sure things load fast, things run fast, things post fast. And so that's something really, really critical in making great applications. Caching is king, right? These applications are used in all types of different scenarios. I don't know how many times we've been in a conference like this, and you're trying to use something, and the data connection is weak, the 3G connection, the Wi-Fi connection. And if the data is not cached properly, the application experience really becomes horrible for people. And more, as the networks are becoming congested, we're seeing this problem, a lot, not just in conferences like here and in Austin and other places, but it's happening everywhere, especially if you're in real, like airports. I see it a lot very often now too. So it's important to really think of your caching strategy from the beginning. What stuff can you keep offline? What stuff can you keep locally on the device, so that even if there's a low connection or a bad connection, you can still provide a good experience to your user. There's another example of someone who rethought the inbox. This is something that's built natively, and I don't know if anybody's used a Sparrow app, but they've done a really good job. It's a great application. It's really thought about, how to make an inbox better than what's provided natively on the client. So don't be afraid of things that are natively there already. Rethink the Maps application. I don't know if Waze is used in Europe, but it's quite a popular mapping application, and it's even made its way into the weather reports that they do. So this is somewhere in LA, and you can see that instead of just typically showing you a helicopter view, there's some user that's reported that a car is stalled on the shoulder, and there's real-time data. So this is the data from that application making it into other places. Rethink the camera. If you do that well, you can get bought for $1 billion. Rethinking behaviors, this is the last one. So this is one of the companies we work with. This is another example. It might be hard to see here, but what this is a virtual store. So this is a store which basically is printed on an advertisement spot. And what you do is you go up to it with your smartphone, and there's a barcode, and you take a picture, and you can, instead of buying the detergent, going to Target or Walmart to your store to buy detergent, you can order it from there, and it'll order it right from the store. And that's a similar example on the right-hand side. That was actually painted on a subway in South Korea. So it's kind of interesting in between the doors. So it's again, rethinking the experiences and behaviors that we're used to today. All right, I'll get into some of the trends which I think are going to be important for 2012, 2013. Some of the best apps to come will be the ones that you don't even see or touch. Siri is just an example of something like that. Scheduling apps, ambient location. I met some guys yesterday that were working on a pretty interesting application for expense reporting. So I think things like that, but thinking about what the power of Siri is and expanding that, it's going to be important. And what you really have to keep in mind is like the disruptive power of mobile is amazing. Have you guys heard of this Uber application? You guys know what it is? So Uber, it's quite popular in the US now. I mean, it's a German word, I believe, but what it is it's an on-demand taxi service. And so the way it's powered is there's taxi drivers that have an application and customers that download an application. And you basically go and you call a car, and you can see where it is, you can see where he's coming. You input all your payment information through the application, so you don't ever exchange dollars with the driver. The driver can't lie to you about how far away he is. It sends you an email with a map with the GPS coordinates of the entire distance you drove. And so again, this is something that would never been enabled without smartphones and applications, because it uses the location, the context, payment, and the driver and passengers both have apps that work together. It's really cool. You guys should take a look at it. It's really taking off in North America, especially in the big cities. And if you ever fly to San Francisco, use one of these, because it's a lot cheaper than taking a cab to Palo Alto or Mountain View or wherever you got to go. All right, here's some of the top experience trends that we see coming together. Continued number one is 3 clicks to reward. This is something that I'm a strong believer in. A lot of the applications that we work on, it's pretty self-explanatory. Make sure whatever the user is doing can be accomplished within 3 steps. Less than 15-second experience. Now, that's not always available. Obviously, you're listening to music and things like that's not going to happen. But getting to your music or getting to your book, all these things, you should be able to get it done in under 15 seconds. Just like those photos I showed, that's the small window of time you have to actually engage someone. This is a really important one, and I suggested doing a whole talk on it, but I stuck it in here, which is think about life without a laptop. And I think if you start thinking about this, there's a lot of applications that will come out of this, which is things like Dropbox and CloudOn and Fuse. These are people that are thinking about a time and place where you don't have a laptop anymore. And if you actually think about that scenario, it's quite powerful. How many times have we all been in a meeting and the people across from you are sitting on their laptop, probably checking email and doing so many other things? The great thing about a tablet is because it's a single context, most of the time, it forces you to focus. So if everybody's in the meeting application, if everybody's looking at a presentation, I think it creates much more productivity. I also think that represents a huge opportunity. One of the things I tell a lot of our enterprise clients is there was this evolution that happened from the desktop to laptops, but the software never really changed because the hardware was exactly the same. But this evolution is now happening from notebooks to tablets, and all the software has to be rebuilt. And I think that surfaces multiple opportunities for startups, opportunities for existing businesses to rethink how that software paradigm should work now that it's a tablet computer. Displays as second screens, AirPlay and smart TVs. This is an important thing. We're seeing AirPlay really take off. It's becoming quite important. We're seeing the connected TV space become quite popular now, especially in 2013. We saw a lot of this at CES this year. This is an important one. How many people in here have like a Retina display iPad? But what we're seeing is if you don't update your applications to take that into account, you really create a crappy experience for your users. And a lot of people don't take it for granted because they don't go buy one, they don't look at it. And when somebody buys one of these high-end displays and uses their existing application and the assets are wrong, it's a really, really bad experience. So we tell a lot of our customers, or even people that we talk to, really focus on, remember there's Retina displays there. It's great because it's better for your eyes. The text is more crisp, but you need to redesign your app to take advantage of that and your assets to really utilize that. Another thing that we're seeing is more powerful hardware. So last week, Samsung announced the Galaxy S3. It's a quad-core phone. Well, they're not doing this so that we can kind of do mobile web apps. I think where we see this really going is more powerful client applications, things like video editing. I think finally that'll start becoming a reality because the processors are catching up and going to give us the capability of doing that kind of stuff. So again, that opens up a lot of opportunities for new types of applications to be built. Development trends. I'll touch on this for a bit here. Hybrid applications. So, we hear a lot about pushing people to HTML5. We think it's a great platform. I tell anybody, I say, go in the App Store, look at the top 100 applications, and you'll very rarely find something that's purely HTML5. What you do see is something like an Instagram where they had a great experience that was native, but they also had a great HTML5 experience for people that were picking up on the bits that were dropped in the stream elsewhere, so people clicking in Facebook. So I think the hybrid approach is nice. Also sort of what you see in a Facebook application where the stream is sort of HTML5, but the rest of the Chrome is native. I think that's where really 2013 will be popular. Fast mobile experience. Steve gave a great talk about this. I shouldn't touch about it, but just yesterday, I don't know if you guys saw it, but the Twitter revamped their entire website so that the mobile website uses 1/3 less data. And that just goes to Steve's point about how much can be done with some work. And reducing data by 1/3 is phenomenal. The Apple UDID change is going to be a pretty big impact for a lot of developers. If you don't know what this is the unique identifier that most developers were using to track users, and so that you could track them across applications, across ad networks. They're basically deprecating this, and so people have to come up with new schemes to work around this. I think it's going to be a lot of work, and we see that in our clients. iCloud's integration is still spotty and challenging to use. Conceptually, it's great. I don't think it's been fully built out to where it needs to be. But we hope to see improvements with this as Apple continues to release new operating systems. Windows Phone 7 and Windows 8, there's a big question mark here. Is this going to be a major tablet player? There's a huge push. There's a lot of dollars behind it. Microsoft spends a lot of money on the marketing side. Microsoft spends a lot of money with developers, and they have a huge existing developer ecosystem. So we're really hoping to see someone else join the fray and be successful. Windows 8 could be that. If you haven't played with it, I think the betas are free. You should go and try it. You can download it on your laptop and get a sense of how the Metro UI works. It's pretty exciting, and would love to see them. And they've done a lot of work in creating a 360 integration with the Xbox and everything else where things work together really, really well within their ecosystem. The Facebook timeline and intent integration, they had a blog post about this a couple days ago as well. So, in Facebook now, it's no longer just likes. They have these customized intents. Things like Spotify does, Sunny listened to this song, or Sunny read this article. These are really driving mobile adoption. Again, you saw that with Instagram. They weren't using intents, but essentially they had a lot of stuff dropping into Facebook and Twitter, which was helping their distribution. So I think that's another important thing to consider in building applications this year and next year. On ICS, not to leave those guys out, but it's important to create an ICS-friendly experience that really kind of gives you on par or better what you have on iOS. And finally, I think with ICS you can do that. And two great examples that we've seen recently are Instagram and Path. They've both done a good job of creating experiences that are, on par to their iOS experience, and they've seen the subsequent jump in users because of that. Oh, that's it.
That was a little faster than expected.
Oh, but, yeah, sorry about that.
We have a lot of time for questions now.
Sure, yeah.
I can't believe that. We have to fill up at least 15 minutes. No, stay here. Okay, if there are no questions... Oh, there's one. Oh, at least two.
Do you see anything changing with it being easier or harder to become an Apple developer for mobile? My husband's one, I just want to know.
Being an Apple developer going forward? Yeah, I mean, I think their ecosystem is really growing, and there's a lot of speculation as to the new devices coming out, but I think it's a good time to be an Apple developer. I would continue to tell them to keep trucking along.
Microphone is coming. Over there.
Thanks for the talk. Do you see any innovations in mobile advertising and the monetization scheme?
Yeah, on the monetization, it's interesting. So there's three big things that we see. The subscription models that are being put out by the App Store folks. So Apple has the subscriptions available, which is, I think, working out pretty good for the media industry folks. Similarly, on the enterprise side, Apple launched something recently called the Volume Purchasing Program, which allows enterprises to create these custom app stores that are hidden. So if you create an application for an enterprise and you don't want it to be launched into the whole app store, through the Volume Purchasing Program, it gets cordoned off based on those users' UDIDs or whatever Apple's equivalent is now. And so I think that's really important because you can now sell an application to an enterprise, the application can pay for it, and they can download it through the normal channels that they're used to.
You didn't say anything about TV. I don't know if that was off the topic of your talk, but I think it's very similar, very different, very exciting opportunity. The location awareness of mobile opens up a lot of opportunities, like Uber. I do use Uber, actually. I forgot the name of it, though, but it is awesome.
Yeah.
But TV is so ubiquitous. Any thoughts about TV?
Yeah, I mean, smart TVs have been a big push for us in 2012 already. Smart TVs directly with things like Samsung and then the Google TV platforms. What we really see happening there is kind of going back to what I was saying about Microsoft and Apple. They're creating these like 360 ecosystems with your handheld device, a tablet device, and then your television device, and they're making it all work together. And I think that's the key. Where a lot of times you may start watching something on the bus, and then you get home, you don't want to keep watching it on there. So you need to have a seamless experience to take a show that's a quarter of the way through or halfway through, sync it, because when you get home, you want to watch it on your 46-inch or 50-inch television. And so what we're really seeing is people starting to think about that experience in the right way, and that's great. That's the way you really want to use that stuff. On the flip side, what we see is, at home you have a DVR, and that's where you do all your recording. We're now working with a lot of the same folks to map whatever you're recording there on your mobile, so you don't, again, have to replicate and say, if you're recording, the Real Housewives at home, when you leave the house, the phone should know that that's what you're recording and that's what you want to watch. The two guys that work like 5 miles from each other are like talking to each other.
Came all the way to Berlin just to talk.
Yeah.
Same thing, like the integration you talked about there would be such an incredible experience. And I have to say, God bless Instagram, but all the common people that I talk to have a horrendous experience with photos. And the combination of, I want, my very large original version, but when people are on mobile devices, I want smaller versions, or I'm emailing it. I want to keep it private. It seems like so many of the solutions now, like I just found a bunch of my photos that I didn't realize were being shared were shared. I discovered it last night. I searched myself to see who had more hits, you or me. Yeah. And so am I crazy, or is there opportunity there? And same thing, like getting photos off a camera is a pain.
Yeah, photo sharing is becoming really interesting. You know, specifically two things. One, the cameras are getting better and better, so they're producing really, really large files now. And everybody really wants to own your photos. You know, from Facebook, they've released like a native application that uploads photos. The Google guys do it through the Google Plus stuff. And then, you know, Samsung and everybody else is cooking up their own thing. I think the interesting thing there will be if there's an independent player that can come out and really kind of everybody wants to upload their stuff and share it because they view that as a way to generate traffic. And I ultimately think sort of the older model, which is like the Kodak O-Photo, which is unfortunately like shutting down, where you have your own photos, you share them to your own private cloud, and then you share them from there. Nobody's really nailed that in this current iteration of photo sharing. Everybody's really focusing on what the teens are doing, and the teens don't care. They take photos, they get uploaded, they don't even know they get uploaded, right? But I think there's a huge segment of the market that are adopting smartphones that really want the privacy and the convenience, but the privacy first and foremost.
I just came in a little bit late, so I'm not 100% sure if you already answered that. What do you think, like, generally about those applications that popped up in the last year, like Sali or TaskRabbit, that really allow a completely new way of peer-to-peer job market? I mean, how do you perceive that? Like, how is the adaptation in the States, and how do you think this will like continue in the next 1 or 2 years?
So sorry, like the peer-to-peer job market?
Yeah, like you know, Sali, where you can like just enter any job and someone on a
yeah,
mobile.
or like TaskRabbit,
yeah,
things
exactly.
like that. Yeah, I mean, again, I think that goes to my earlier point on mobile is enabling us to do things. So I used TaskRabbit actually a few weeks ago. I was in New York, and there's a pizza place I know in Connecticut, and I didn't feel like driving there. It's about like a 1.5 hour drive each way, but I paid someone $25 to go get me this pizza and come back, and all through the mobile. So again, supply and demand is just a fundamental of like, how our society works, right? And so I think there's an interesting thing that the mobile facilitates there is that supply and demand, it closes that loop. And I think if you can find these unique things, whether it's Uber cabs and people wanting to go places, or whether it's people wanting to order pizza from restaurants that are really far away and they don't want to drive there, I think the mobile is really enabling that. And people that can do that in a real seamless way are going to be really successful.
And like, how's the adaptation right now? Is it like still like really like early adopters, or is it already becoming like more in the mainstream?
Yeah, I mean, it's still definitely early adopters, but the thing is, people are used to paying for things on their phone, and I think because of that, it's going to make its way mainstream really, really fast. And that's, the proxy I'll use there is sort of Uber. Initially, I thought, oh, this would only be something that, the tech geeks will all use because, we know it all works. But, I more and more find random people that would never think of using these services starting to use them, especially when they realize, how easy they are and how safe everything is. And that's, I think, the one nut that somebody has to really crack for these peer-to-peer job services is the safety factor, right? And how do you ensure that gets done? But the great thing is, again, with the phone, you have location, you know where the people are, and so there's probably a lot of ways to make that work. And I think a lot of the good innovations will probably come out of a place like, like Germany, where privacy and other things are, I think, held to a different standard than they are in North America now. So maybe there's a really good opportunity for somebody to come up with a good business model here that then adapts to the US.
Okay, thank you again.
Okay, thanks.